The British statesman Lord Palmerston is famed to have said, "We have no eternal allies, and we have no perpetual enemies. Our interests are eternal and perpetual, and those interests it is our duty to follow." Alliances, thus, are forged from convenience. Likely allies might find themselves likely enemies in only a matter of years. The US-Saudi relationship serves as a preeminent example of such a lesson in recent times. Forged from the necessity of post-Second World War energy flows to the Western Bloc, Saudi Arabia has enjoyed close cooperation with the United States. The relationship simply provides Saudi Arabia with defense, markets to which it can freely sell energy, and the sale of military equipment and technologies. Saudi Arabia occupied a pivotal position in the Cold War and beyond, leaving the United States to only make concessions to Saudi behaviour and trespasses against the bloc. The geopolitics of Saudi Arabia leaves the country with much desired. Water is not plentiful, and neither is habitable land. A population density map will indicate that the 35 million inhabitants primarily reside in the mountainous west on the Red Sea. A product of the infamous Sykes-Picot Agreement, Saudi Arabia finds to its south Sunni Yemen and east Qatar, the UAE, and Oman before the end of the peninsula. Many of Saudi's problems, however, originate in the north and northeast. Traditionally, Israel has been a frequent rival, but Saudi has been willing to work with Israel against a common, larger enemy across the Persian Gulf, Iran. Since the end of the Second World War, Saudi Arabia could count on American intervention or inaction for its protection. In recent times, however, staying true to Lord Palmerston's observation, cold American strategic determinism has guided a shift in US-Saudi relations, the primary cause being a divergence of interests. The most prominent example of the changing dynamic is in the oil market. In the past, Saudi Arabia has been able to get away with murder, often literally, with the most egregious example possibly being the OPEC oil embargo of 1973, in which crude prices quadrupled, a recession was triggered, and many countries underwent the humiliation of car-free days to address the international shortage. The American reaction was unimpressive, to say the least, conceding to the demand that they facilitate a disengagement between Israel and Syria during the Yom Kippur conflict. US President Joe Biden, during his election campaign in 2020, vowed to make Saudi Arabia a pariah for human rights abuses and the brutal murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. This year, however, the president's rhetoric towards Saudi Arabia has conducted an about-face as the US sought Saudi solidarity in the form of boosted oil production. In the midst of the war in Ukraine, it was believed that the kingdom could sway the OPEC Plus members towards supporting US interests. The meeting in July, however, achieved little. In October, OPEC Plus announced a cut of 2 million barrels per day, with Saudi Arabia contributing significantly to this figure, with a 500,000 barrel per day cut, although the OPEC Plus November cut target was never fully met. The kingdom justified this action by citing the International Energy Agency's report of a 1 million barrel per day crude oversupply for the second half of 2022. Draft White House talking points offer a view into the straining relations, as it was exclaimed that the production cut would constitute a total disaster and even a hostile act. While the actual cut has been estimated to be as low as 800,000 barrels per day, the brewing mistrust between the OPEC heavyweight and the US could spill out into greater diplomatic antagonism, such as the termination of weapons contracts. In December, Saudi Arabia reaffirmed energy and strategic cooperation with China and signalled a general divorce from US strategic policy. In recent years, Saudi Arabia has repeatedly criticised the United States, stressing the principle of non-interference, but this week affirmed with China Saudi adherence to the One China principle, the recognition that Taiwan is an inalienable part of China. Deeper strategic ties were similarly announced, aimed to accelerate the kingdom's digitalization of the energy sector and the digital transformation of the economy more broadly, according to the director of the Middle East Asia project at the Middle East Institute, John Calabrese. Formerly assertive in the Gulf region, America's diminishing resonance in Saudi Arabia can be understood simply as a divergence of strategic interests, and even more simply, that US concerns are now far away. Tensions in the Asia-Pacific and conflict in Ukraine do not threaten the kingdom, making Saudi cooperation particularly difficult. In the past, Saudi Arabia has been either threatened by the potential for a Soviet-backed regime change or spillover from the War on Terror, during which time the US had a strong presence in the region. Since the collapse of the USSR and subsiding US military operations in the Middle East, the pair seeing eye to eye is becoming increasingly unlikely. The absence of the United States in Saudi Arabia's equation leaves the country strategically vulnerable, as it is militarily weak, but at the same time rich, an often dangerous combination. This is an important consideration for Saudi Arabia, and will form the basis of its future relationships. China cannot guarantee Saudi Arabia's security all by itself, so it is likely that Riyadh will seek closer cooperation with other regional power brokers like Israel. Such a policy, although unofficial, has already been enacted, with the so-called Arab-Israeli alliance, which facilitates joint action to counterbalance Iran, a major concern for Jerusalem and Riyadh alike. While the OPEC Plus cuts did not greatly affect the market, a rapprochement between the US and Saudi Arabia is unlikely. A diminishing US presence in the region may also embolden Iran to act with greater impunity, potentially encouraging a deeper relationship between Saudi and China, an ally of Iran, with the hopes of curtailing its aggressive behaviour. In the December meeting, Chinese President Xi recognized Riyadh's concerns, expressing a desire to strengthen joint cooperation to ensure the peaceful nature of Iran's nuclear program, and for Iran to exhibit principles of good neighbourliness. Are Riyadh's calculations correct in embittering relations with America and getting closer to China? Let us know what you think in the comments. This is Anglicageopolitica. Thank you for watching.